We are pleased to have opened our high-level track on March 22nd, 2021, which featured the appointment of the 2021 Wsis Forum Chairman.
Now, I would like to forward the next two questions to Dr. Naila Siddiqui Kamal, the CEO of Medred Healthcare Limited. To Dr. Naila, the first question is how COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted delivery of healthcare with reference to telehealth, number one. Number two, the need for online training program for healthcare workforce, not just in their specialty, but also in relevant health informatics. And please share if you have any case study on Madras academic training of e-doctors to support frontline healthcare workforce. Please, capacity.
Hello, thank you. First of all, I'm really grateful and humbled that I've been invited to speak on this auspicious platform, and listening to everyone's achievements is really heartening and encouraging. So I'm a gynecologist by background, and I am also very heavily involved in medical education, a senior lecturer, and in Imperial College, London. So my interest in health informatics have been for many years because at Imperial there were many opportunities where we used disruptive technologies in not only in teaching and training of the future generation of doctors, but also in trying to find new ways of delivery of healthcare. So the things that I have been trying to promote over last 10 years. So with the COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately, the devastation that it has done, one thing that came out was that suddenly um, technology, ICT-based technology became so acceptable because it was the only way of survival. So the hospital or the setting that I was working in when the first wave of COVID came was that we had one ward of COVID patients at the beginning of March last year and one mortuary. And by the end of March last year, we had 8 wards of COVID patients and 3 mortuaries. So this is the extent that we in a developed, I'm based in UK, in London, this is the extent that we were faced against. Then coming to developing countries, I've been involved in training and teaching frontline healthcare workers in Pakistan and all over the world. We've had a group of e-doctors which were facilitated by my collaborators in Pakistan called Educast Pakistan, who trained doctors who were out of their the routine um, practical work, and they wanted to practice remotely. So we got accreditation and trained them on frontline mother and child, which is a big United Nations WHO sustainable development goal for maternal mortality. And our Medret Academy, which is a virtual hub, it's a platform which has got training courses of various levels towards healthcare workforce. And we trained about 100 doctors on frontline maternal health. And then they went on to support camps in Yemen, as we all know what is happening, in the war-torn areas. And we had the opportunity of facilitating this in Yemen through my collaborators at Educast Pakistan. So basically, what Medret Academy is all about is a platform of healthcare educationists who would like to facilitate learning. But what makes us different is that we have got a background in is ICT-based disruptive technologies. So that makes us unique. So I think we were the first who brought out a 12-week program, which has got joint learning outcomes. So it has got not only learning objectives for ops and gynae, but it also has got learning objectives from ICT-based, telehealth. So our cohort, the first cohort that came out, were expected to know how to develop ecosystems. So rural, urban health ecosystems around disease, along population. So they were not just doctors. They are also ICT, sort of they've got a background of these information so that they can work with the ICT colleagues in finding these out of the box solutions. What we see now is that we cannot go on practicing the way we did about 3 years ago. Another thing about capacity building and knowledge, if I have time, I'd like to say is that there was a study from Harvard which showed that in, say, 1960s, the time it would take to double double the amount of knowledge in medicine that was there was about 50 years. Then it over 2010, it was like 7 years or something. And now in recent years, it was 72 hours. What they were trying to show is in 72 hours, and it may be even less now, the amount of medical knowledge is doubling. Hence, we do not have the same capacity in our brains to function in the same way. So I think my time's up, so I'll stop here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sure you have a lot to share. I just have a one follow-up question. Just came, I'm a bit curious to ask this. How effective is telehealth now? And how well the patients are accepting this service?
I think we had our, telehealth is not something new. I mean, if you look at the evolution of telehealth, it has been there for many decades. But um, in our recent practice, there are people who were really skeptics, or you have the net generation who are very happy to use these technologies because it's flexible, it's easy for them. But the patient-doctor, relationship and the rapport building, we have become very good at it. And it has been such, I'm in gynae cancer, and I've had to break bad news to patients over video consultations. And we have developed that communication in such a way that there were patients who fed back that they prefer to be in their own environment with their family to hear that information, while as you have some patients who would obviously want face to face. So I think the acceptability because of the situation has become much better.
Okay, thank you. Now, for more questions here, uh, many of these comes as comments rather than questions.
I think there is one, if you'd allow me to answer,
Yes, please.
someone's asked about the patient-doctor relationship being compromised because of the distance and the virtual interface. I would say that, we are amidst an unprecedented time, and this COVID-19 pandemic is a very high risk health issue, especially for the vulnerable people who've got medical um, uh, comorbidities. And then we have to weigh the pros and cons of what is lesser of a risk. And in such situations, you have to facilitate the health care through these means. But again, I would like to say that there are places in this world where technology-based delivery of healthcare is not a privilege or a luxury. It's not a convenience. It is life and death. So we have to look at those places as well, and especially try to facilitate that. The patients in the middle of a war zone, the mother's dying, will not worry if someone is on the telephone trying to help them. They would just need the help. Yeah. So I think that is how I think the context is important.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Neela.
Mm.
I have another question here. With regards to countries of conflicts and troubles with internet connections, virtual events is it a chance or a challenge? And how can we as a society to solve these issues?
So if I can share what we had to do in Yemen, so that if that is helpful. So that is a challenge, because if you use satellite based mobile ambulances, which we'd want to do, and we have done at a smaller scale for mother and child. You know, you have ambulances in these places which are not actually ambulance. It's just a van with maybe a cylinder of oxygen or a stretcher. So in the first place, that is suboptimal. But if we are lucky enough, we want to develop these vehicles which have got technology of telehealth, and a midwife in those vans, so that they can get to those camps and those places and help those mothers themselves, rather than expecting those people to be displaced and come. The biggest challenge is that satellite, if you use satellite, then I think what I was told was it can come in the radar of some, in the army, opposite armies, satellite radars, and then get bombed as if it's an army vehicle. So the people have come out with solutions. The company that our collaborators on the ground have come up with some special Wi-Fi arrangements. So if there are any queries about that we are happy to share that. I think they would be the best people to share that technology, and I'm happy to pass on their details. But there is a way.
Sure. And I would like to ask if Miss Jane would like to shed some light on this same topic, same question.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Siddiqui. It's humbling to hear from you, because you just reminded us all that technology, often people overlook it as an enabler, and as a horizontal issue. We've got to have it to enable everything else. And Dr. Hassan, to your point,